Welcome back to Let's Play Final Fantasy X. The next morning has come, and we're about to head our way out of Besaid Island. We have to head across to the island, to the dock.
Hey, sleepyhead! Something I want to give you.
Whoa! You're giving this? To me?
Cool.
Yeah, use it well.
That's the sword you gave Chapu.
What?
Well, he never used it. Where's Yuna?
We're taking the same boat as Yuna, right? Why do we gotta wait here?
Yuna came to this village 10 years ago, when the last calm started.
The calm?
Since then, she's been like a little sister to me and Lulu. But she had the talent. She became an apprentice. Now, today, she leaves as a summoner.
This is our journey. We should leave together.
You really don't need all that luggage.
They're not really my things. They're gifts for the temples we're to visit.
This isn't a vacation, Yuna.
I guess you're right.
Let's just leave it there.
Okay, off we go.
Okay, it's time to head our way out of Besaid. The village, anyway. We're still on our way out of the island. We have our first battle since leaving.
Here comes one now. Hey, why don't you try out that sword I gave you?
No problem.
Not too shabby. You kept up with him pretty well. Might make a good guardian someday. A flyer. My kind of customer.
How about that? More than an hour into the game and we're still running through tutorials. And tutorials involving the battles, anyway. And that's because we're being introduced to a number of new types of character types that weren't established earlier in the game. See, now we're going to have one with Lulu here.
That looks like trouble.
Ha! Watch this!
Told ya, only magic can beat that thing. If you can't beat them down, you gotta use magic of an element they don't like.
Magic? Element?
Let's have our black mage show you what I mean. Lu, you're up.
Clueless, aren't you? Good thing I'm here. Spells of ice work well against fire fiends. And ice fiends are weak against fire magic. You follow?
I get fire and ice, but what about lightning and water?
Lightning and water are opposed, just like fire and ice. This one here is a water fiend, which means...
We're getting a lot of characters thrown at us in battle all at once, unlike the earlier Final Fantasy games, which they'd be dispersed over a long period of time. This is kind of a new thing, and I guess that's why we're still doing tutorials.
Take your time.
Let's get going, man.
We're gonna wait.
Huh?
Are you ready?
Isn't that something? Yuna is such a passive individual
What's going on?
that she left. I don't know how long she would have stayed there, but she seems like she left because Tidus asked why they were still there.
It's an ancient custom. People leaving the island pray here for a safe trip. Chapu didn't pray that day. Said he'd miss his boat.
When in Rome, do as the Romans do.
That should do it.
In the last episode, and continued into this one, we have gained a little bit of better understanding on Wakka's motivation for being the way he is. See that Tidus actually looks like Wakka's brother, Chapu, his dead brother, which kind of explains Wakka's more playful, like roughhousing kind of stuff that he does with Tidus on occasion. It seems totally inappropriate, but he wants to think of him as his brother, and he even goes as far as to give him Chapu's old sword. It just so happens that Tidus is a blitzball player, the best blitzball player he's ever seen, so he has a good excuse to bring him along. Whoa. Why is nobody else helping him in this fight? Now you remember this guy. This is one of Yuna's guardians. Of course, we can only guess why he's attacking Tidus, but it's a quick little boss battle. Oh!
That's enough.
You couldn't say that earlier?
What's with that guy?
Kimari Ronso, of the Ronso tribe. He's learned the fiend's way of fighting.
That's not what I meant.
He's another of Yuna's guardians.
Huh?
Sometimes we don't understand him either. Kumari doesn't talk much anyway. But he has protected me since I was a child.
Kimari is one of the hardest characters in this game to gauge, because he doesn't speak very much. He does speak, just not a lot. Which is a complete pain in the ass. See, he's not really an option to put us in the group right now. I guess what you could say about Kimari is he is extraordinarily loyal to Yuna, and his motivation for that attack is sort of a weird kind of thing of protection. He doesn't want Tidus messing around with Yuna. Okay, now checking out all the overdrives of the different characters we have. Elemental reels, we're not going to be able to see that for a little while. And we have Yuna's Aeon. No options or anything yet, because we're still at a low level. Here's something else I've noticed at this point. Even though we haven't been introduced to these characters for very long yet, it's quite clear that Yuna has one of the most passive personalities I have ever even heard of. I mean, she's so submissive to everybody else. She is the summoner, and technically she should be the dominant individual in the party. She's the central member of this party. But she constantly, caves to the whims of the other characters.
A flyer! That's your department, right?
True. But, why don't we let our summoner show us what she's made of? Your first real battle. Let's see some style.
Show us what your training has taught you, Yuna.
Okay.
First battle summon of an Aeon. This is where Yuna's real strength comes into play. She's kind of a white mage otherwise, and a little bit hard to use in battle. I mean, obviously for healing and all. But offensively, she's not really useful unless you summon an Aeon. And we're about to see the power of that. Now you'll see that although the Aeons are powerful, and it's a power that she's going to eventually use to defeat Sin, it's not overwhelmingly powerful. So you're not going to see me too very often summoning Aeons into battle. Maybe during bosses and stuff, but not during normal enemies. Anyway, back to how passive Yuna is. She should be the leader of the group because she's a summoner, but she's very passive, sort of caving into the whims of these other characters. Lulu especially is very dominant, has a very dominant personality. And it's a little bit of a weird relationship between the two. I believe this battle was very specifically set up to show you off Valefor's overdrive, which is like limit break. But I didn't let the battle get that far. See this show off of the three-dimensional environments the game has. Even whereas the older Final Fantasy games were all 2D backgrounds and 3D characters from 7 to 9.
Another one of those. No problem. Leave this one to me, huh? Say goodnight, birdie.
Now notice we had to summon against this monster before. Now we're facing another one. See how effectively we're capable of fighting them without using an Aeon. And you'll notice, surprisingly, even though the Aeon is supposed to be the ultra-powerful enemy, or ultra-powerful being that we use, we can actually do better just fighting with our regular characters. Now notice what happens when I attack with Yuna. 32. Wakka's of course higher with 118. And I'm going to have Lulu make a physical attack to show you how much physical power she has. 31. Slightly less than Yuna, but really they have about equal strength. Now isn't that something you notice about this game? It's different than the earlier Final Fantasy games, because the early games had the job system in place, which is sort of still in place, but any of your characters are capable of performing any job, as long as you leveled up, you chose it for them, and you leveled them up like that. Then when you get to, say, Final Fantasy 6 or 3, depending on what country you're in, characters have much more, like, this individual character has this ability set. And when we got to, like, 7 and 8, and even up to a point in 9, it really didn't make a huge difference whether your characters were male or female, because it didn't make a huge difference regarding what kind of physical strength they had. In Final Fantasy 9, you had like Dagger, which was a healer, but on the other hand, you had a character like Freya, who was sort of like what Kimahri is in this game, very physically, a person capable of relying on her physical strength. In this game, it makes a pretty big departure from that. See, we see with Lulu here, we have some sphere levels we can upgrade. We're going to be moving across areas which boost her magic strength rather than her physical strength. And it's pretty much true with all of the female characters. They're all going to be the physically weakest characters. The strongest female character we have had, which would be Riku, actually, is weaker than the weakest male character, which would be Wakka. I just think it's interesting to note that kind of thing that they were willing to do in this game, whereas most other ones are not willing to do it, and they're completely shying away from the concept with a game like Final Fantasy 11 or what's that one, 14. Of course, I'm talking about physical strength only. None of those characters are really useless. They're actually all very useful. Every character, male or female, is useful in this game. Just an issue of their physical attack power. Okay, now we have an arrangement. All three of these enemy types at once, and you see where having a diversified group of characters is a good thing to have. See how well that worked? Now granted, we're still in the tutorial phase. Later on, it's not going to be quite so clear-cut. And since we have the ability to swap characters out in battle without, like, having to pause the menu or do anything like that, you're going to see a lot of character swapping during the longer battles, just to take advantage of the strengths and weaknesses. There are a lot of wrecked buildings all over the place. Time to go wandering off. There's nothing really over here. I thought there was, but I don't think there's anything over here.
Goodbye.
And I'm going to bring this episode to a close, and in the next one we will head to our next island, where we will find another temple.